Y'all ready? Everybody knows the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So much of what we learn, what we talk about, what we do is based off of this one concept of mutual respect and love. It's the guiding principle for our laws and for the future of society as a whole. So why then do we almost never take this same concept into consideration when it comes to our own desires for respect and love? Our adamant lack of self-love in America is such a pervasive issue that 20% of teens will experience depression before they reach adulthood. All of us feel sad or lonely at times, but for quite a few of us, symptoms of depression can keep us from leading a normal life. According to Columbia University, rates of depression in teens and young adults have skyrocketed since 2005, and they only continue to grow rapidly. Now, there are a lot of teens who suffer from depression, and making a small initiative to talk to your friends can help a lot more than you might think it will. I don't want to get into the American youth's problem with depression, but rather a problem that all teens will face: not loving themselves. Why do all teens, at one point or another, have a problem with who they are, with what they look like, with the people they hang out with? Unfortunately, all of this is very normal, and it causes a lot of unnecessary stress. One of the main causes for teens not being able to love themselves as much as they should is social media. At first, that sounds kind of contradictory, doesn't it? The purpose of places like Instagram and Snapchat is to connect people, to bring them together. They serve as the world's largest meeting places. So how can they be so bad? Well, according to a study by Pennsylvania State University, teens are much more likely than adults to delete posts within 12 hours of publishing them. This is because they didn't receive as many likes or as many comments as they would have wanted. It's so hard for us to figure out whether or not people like us over social media, which is what can make it so detrimental to our self-esteem. Another study by the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, says that teens often look to others when deciding whether or not they like something about themselves. When you're on Instagram, think about how many posts you usually see. 10, 25, maybe 100. Surely half of these are glossy, well-edited pictures. You don't see any blemishes, any weird faces. You don't see very many mistakes. Now, think about how that ratio is similar to the time we spend not on social media. None of the time we spend in the real world is spent being perfect. Our real lives are so much more, well, real. And when you spend your time criticizing your looks and your personality, and then you go on a place like Snapchat, and all you see is a bunch of people living awesome, fun-filled lives, it's easy to see how you don't love yourself as much as you should. So, what can we do? Well, one of the main solutions to the problem of the fakeness of social media is awareness. The more aware we are about the differences between real and virtual connection, the more we can bridge the gap between our real and virtual perceptions of ourselves. It's so important for us to just, every now and then, take a step back and recount how different our time spent sucked into the Instagram vortex is from our time in real life, as glamorous as that time may be. There are many other problems that psychologists point to when talking about teens and their lack of self-love. One of the main ones is sleep. When we're in elementary school, our teachers would tell us about the essentials of life: food, water, and shelter. But they would always forget about sleep. If the negative effects of social media didn't sound bad enough, they can also be addictive and cause severe lack of sleep. For our brains, social media triggers the same effects as does a conversation. But for our bodies, these effects have very strikingly different results. Staying at home on the phone, as opposed to going out and being with your friends, can lead to more symptoms of depression and anxiety without your brain or your body ever even realizing it. Additionally, the blue light that our phones create can inhibit our body's production of melatonin, which can severely limit the amount of sleep that we get on a nightly basis. A lot of things can help with this, like making sure you set down your phone 30 minutes before you go to bed, but if you're like me and you don't have the most willpower, just making sure that you put your phone on nighttime mode and limiting the amount of blue light that it produces, or establishing a rough bedtime can be very helpful tricks. All in all, the key to self-love and self-respect is self-care. Self-care is the #1 thing to keep in mind when talking about emotional self-esteem. It's important to stay healthy and to stay off of social media, but it's more important to stay in the right mindset, which is, for most people, the hardest thing to do. If you have the right ideas, physical self-care will beget emotional self-care. So if you wake up at the same time every day, make sure you go outside and surround yourself with lots of natural light and warm friends. That physical self-care will beget more emotional satisfaction. One of my best friends, Olivia Bezier, look, there's us, has been there to help me through my own journey with self-love. And last year, at our annual leadership workshop here at Haynes Academy, HASC, she was leading a group discussion about self-love. And she said, if you can't learn to love yourself, how can you ever learn to love anybody else? Can I get an amen? So I wanted to try that with y'all today. If you can't learn to love yourself, how can you ever learn to love anybody else? Can I get an amen? Amen! Thank you very much.